regular meeting of the Atwater City Council, January 20th, 2019 to order. Roll call. Ambrose.
Present.
Kale.
Here.
Raymond.
Here.
Vieira.
Here.
Creighton. Here. Mr. Kale, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Followed by invocation by Chaplain Meade.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we pray? Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather in these halls to do the business of the city of Atwater, Father. As we all gather here, Father, and do whatever presentation needs to be presented, I pray that it will be in good order with respect for one another, Father. No matter what side we're all on the side of the city of Atwater. And we just ask, Father, that you bless those that sit upon this council hall and council. Father, we just thank you for them. Father, we do pray now also for the police officers that patrol this city, Father, and also for those officers in Texas that were shot at, and 5 of which were wounded. Father, we pray for those 2 that are in critical condition. And we ask that you'll just bless that police department and that community as you bless our officers. We also pray for our firemen, Father, that they will be blessed and will be safe as they protect our city also. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, we have a special, okay, first report out of closed session. We're going to continue closed session after this meeting, so there's nothing to report out at this time.
And can we clarify?
Yeah, right now we had the city clerk resigned, so we're going to have to do some housekeeping by appointing a city clerk. So the attorney's going to explain to you guys what we're doing.
Yeah, so earlier, and I apologize, I got stuck behind an accident, so I was running a little bit late. The city council actually voted on the appointment of, what's it called, interim city clerk position. We didn't, under the municipal code, that is actually done through direct appointment by the mayor. And so the mayor will essentially ratify the appointment, but the vote was unnecessary, and it would be a direct ratification, or a direct appointment by the mayor. So
this time I appoint Brian Raymond as the deputy interim city clerk.
And so we'll still be keeping our agenda item on this, but that was for purposes of closed session. So.
Okay, with that, city clerk, if you don't mind beginning. We'll let them get prepared here a minute. You want me to, I can help you out here.
Yeah, we're
okay.
Start.
So you're going to start off at Marin, subsequent need items. Start reading that. See if we get anything changed from there. Then go approval of the minute. Agenda is posted. I'll help you through the process.
Are there any subsequent need items?
Does anybody at this time have any items they want to pull from the agenda? Seeing none? Okay. Approval of the agenda is posted. Recommendation, motion for the agenda to be approved as posted or amended.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as posted or amended.
Raymond, go ahead.
Mayor Creighton, I know we discussed the other day some of the committee assignments.
Oh, yes. We need to do some housekeeping on the consent calendar. So let's go ahead and pull number 6. Okay. Well, I haven't got to, yeah.
To amend it.
No, okay, you don't have to.
Okay,
that.
okay.
So,
Okay. There's a motion on the
I made a motion
floor.
to approve it as posted or amended.
I second that.
Second by Ambrose. Call for the question.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Viera.
Yes.
Kale.
Yes.
Creighton.
Yes.
Do I vote? Raymond, yes.
Motion passes.
City motion.
Comments from the public, you want to read that?
All right, comments from the public. At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. You may state your name and address for the record. However, it is not required. Action will not be taken on an item that is not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. To comment on an item that is on the agenda, please wait until the item is read for consideration. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes.
Seeing none? Oh,
Hi.
state your name, please.
I'm Sherry Mead, 735 Rancho Vista Drive. I was coming up because I wanted to bring to the attention of the council again, Fairway and Green Sands. They're right by the golf course. There's a curve that comes and people tend to speed pretty quickly around that curve. There's 2 school bus stops. There's one just past, because we live in the cottages, and it's a gated community. So when 2 or more people are trying to come in the gate, they're in the street. And so people coming around that curve.
Going eastbound? Okay. No, keep going. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure.
I was like, so, and also just past where our gates are here, there's a school bus stop that's right here. So somebody accelerating around that curve is not going to have time to stop. I know Councilman Raymond's brought this up to the council a few times last year, and Steve had mentioned it earlier, well, I guess towards the end of the year, December. So, and then today there was a car that accelerated pretty quickly while we were going into the gate, and we just barely avoided being clipped. So it is an issue. There's a lot of kids in that area. There's a lot of elderly in that area. So I was wondering if it's possible to maybe get 2 speed humps, one on both sides of that curve, and that would hopefully.
I think there's a lot of people telling speed bumps, but let us first try to make sure that we have any signage or anything. Let's have staff, Lori, go out and take a look at that, and can they make contact with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marie Pickney, and I'm the program manager for First 5 Merced County. I've also been an Atwater resident for the last 45 years. So it's my pleasure to be here. I think this is the first time I've ever been here. So I'm here to provide some information for the council members and then also for the city of Atwater. We have a 2019 Hands-on Hero program in Merced County, and I'm going to read you a little blurb in the interest of time. So Hands-on Heroes program for Merced County looks to acknowledge those individuals or businesses in the community who go above and beyond in supporting children in our county in ways that embody the Children's Bill of Rights. These individuals work tirelessly, bravely overcome adversity and everyday challenges, and are seldom acknowledged for their work. These unsung heroes are directly making a difference in the lives of children ages prenatal to 18 each and every day. So I just wanted to share that the nomination process is open right now. The forms are due by February the 15th. Our nominees that are actually chosen as Hands-on Heroes will be invited to come to the Children's Summit. We'll be having at Yosemite Church this year on April the 10th so that they can receive their award. And the theme of the Children's Summit this year is resilience, and we're looking in and about trauma-informed care. So I brought extra applications in case anybody wanted some. We also have marketing coming up. We'll be doing newspaper, Merced Sunstar, and then also the Merced County Times, and also the radios. So you'll be hearing it blasted out all over the place. I just wanted to take this opportunity to come to the council meeting and share with everybody firsthand, just in case they had any types of questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, right over here if you don't mind. Thank you. We'll make sure we share that.
Steve Mead, Atwater. I want to bring up, we've got May coming up, which is Police Officers Memorial Time. And I'd like the city of Atwater to start getting involved in that. For those who don't know, in Houston, there are 5 officers shot tonight serving a warrant on a house for drugs. 2 of them are in critical condition. We have many officers here that, although we haven't lost an officer, we have a lot of officers that have been hurt in line of duty. Our councilman being one, myself being one, and others I know. We do a lot to serve and to show our veterans how much we appreciate them. And I would like to see us come in May, do something to signify Police Officers Memorial and to salute those who have lost their lives in the line of duty or that serve our community on a regular basis. We have some great officers in our community, and I'd like for the City Council to consider that for coming up in May.
So are you volunteering to lead that?
No. I can help.
You'll help?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I think we can reach back out to you.
Absolutely.
Need a lot of your help, though.
Oh, absolutely, not a problem.
You'll be leading it, you won't even know it.
Sounds good. That's kind of the way I lead, just never quite know it.
Thank you very much, and I agree with that. Anyone else like to come forward at this time? Mr. Hernandez?
Real quickly, I got a couple of things.
Can you state your
Danny Hernandez in Atwater. Last meeting, I was not able to get everything in that I was looking at getting in regarding Sam Joseph. What I did put in was that on the events that occurred here that I'm going to name off is what led up, in my view, to his removal. On April 24, at the almond tree, there was a meeting by the members of this council, with the exception of Vineyard and Price, violating the Brown Act. 5 officers were promoted. 5 officers were promoted to sergeant. The work was hired on the 3rd of January. On the 11th, states to the council to go silent for 30 days, including by saying to council members to get together and kick some butt in 2018. All right? Then we come down to Sam getting removed on the 22nd. It's relevant because the people of this city have been asking for questions about what happened. And from the information that I've received, that's the only thing I can conclude. The police report is here. I went to get it down there in Fresno. That isn't any allegation, that is not, I'm just bringing up without anybody knowing. Switching to another subject, if I have enough time, a disgraceful thing happened down there this weekend down there at the VFW here in Atwater. VFW Post 9946, the Atwater Girl Scout Troop was denied and was locked out of the meeting and having the ability to meet there, for their meetings. There's been a lot of stuff that's been going on down there, but one of the things that did happen over the course of this lockout, the Girl Scouts lost a $500 sewing machine that they used to train the girls. I think it's despicable from the standpoint of the VFW, the commander that's in charge down there, to allow this kind of stuff to go on. The people that are patronizing the bar are coming out of the bar and hassling the girls as they're going to the ladies' room. And I'm telling you here that this is not going to continue. And I want the citizens of Atwater to know that we're going to be looking at having a protest down there on Wednesday, January 30 at 4 p.m. We're going to get this commander out of there. You cannot have this kind of stuff going on. The girls had to move on Saturday. It took about 10 of us to remove them out of the building because of this.
Can you wrap it up?
It's wrapped up.
Thank you very much.
I would invite.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Frank Johnson, Modesto, California, President of the NAAAP. I was going to talk about Joseph's termination letter, but the Merced Sunstar already covered it in detail. Excellent paper, great job. Joseph, quit wasting time and money on pointless litigation that will get you nowhere. Face the facts. You're finished in law enforcement. Time to look for another line of work. As for hiring the new chief, I don't know who Lori hired, and I'm disappointed the council did not exercise more control over the process per municipal code. Seems they just gave Lori a free rein and intend to just rubber stamp the approval at a later date. I hope she didn't hire another Bessinger clone. Bessinger, or Dr. Drew, as some sarcastically call him, is one of the worst police chiefs I've ever met. I could talk about him for an hour, but I only have 3 minutes. Against the advice of a retired APD administrative sergeant and against the advice of many other credible professionals, Dr. Drew appointed the most hated and least trusted APD sergeant to the position. Then, after much department backlash, Dr. Drew lied to the whole department in an email saying that he would rotate the position among the sergeants. That was over 2 months ago. Dr. Drew hasn't rotated squat. Apparently, Dr. Drew's history of double-crossing his subordinates dating back to the days as a captain in Clovis PD. No wonder the Clovis Police Department and fire unions opposed his candidacy for council. In fact, I've recently heard some of Clovis citizens who want me to come and speak out against Dr. Drew at their meeting. I've been really busy locally, but I'm seriously considering it. Have no doubt, fighting corruption, crime, fake news, lies, and incompetence in Atwater remains one of the highest priorities. Some have called me a loose cannon. But during my 2.5 years coming to here, a lot has changed. We certainly can't take all the credit, but I do believe we have had an impact. McBride, Joseph, Price, Hernandez, and Beverly Barella have all been relegated to the ash heap of Atwater's history. Frank Pedro, we still intend to hold you accountable for all the damage you have done to the city of Atwater. You forced your partner.
That's your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before the next person comes up, city attorney wants to address a couple of items. You can go ahead and sit down. We're not going to go back and forth, but real quick.
Well, just real quick, I just want to lay out the process of selecting a police chief so that the public knows and we're completely transparent. The initial stage is there is a panel that's conducted. You can correct me if I'm wrong, it's all law enforcement on the
Community as well as law.
community as well as law enforcement. And then there's a second review, and then a selection is made at staff level because
So at that panel level, there were how many police chiefs?
There were 4, I believe, police chiefs.
4 police
and
chiefs, 2 at-large
community,
citizens that were on that panel.
including the superintendent.
yeah. So you have 2 different levels of review before an offer is made. If the person is hired, then their contract comes before the city council, which gets back to what Mr. Johnson's talking about in terms of city council overview. But Ms. Waterman, being the highest ranking official and the person in charge of day-to-day business, is the one who tenders the offer, and then the council ratifies the offer through approval of the actual employment agreement. If the employment agreement is not reached, there is no person is effectively not hired. So I just wanted for the public, so there's no confusion. That's the process that we're using. That's the process that should be used. It's set out in the municipal code.
That's the process that's always used.
And we want to be completely transparent. And I apologize, Mr. Johnson, you had to ask it because I owed you an email. So.
Any other members of the public that come forward at this time?
Yeah, I'm Al Souza, live on Angeles, one of the coordinators for the Neighborhood Watch on Crestview, and there's been a lot of complaints of the motorhome being parked on Angeles Court. Been there since last summer, and there's been officers go out there and talk to him, and he'd move it for a couple hours and bring it back, and it's been there ever since. It's still there. A lot of times the expandos are out on the street and on the sidewalk, they say, and I've seen it, and I've called in a couple different times. And there's rumors going around that he gets to park it there because he has a boat motor shop on Santa Fe and by 59, and he works on some of the people that work for the city's boats, so he gets to, they kind of overlook having it parked on the street all this time.
We'll have the city manager
So,
look into it.
if a guy could look into it.
Have code enforcement go out there.
Yeah, they've been out there a few times, because I've seen them, and then he moves it a couple hours, and that goes right back there again. And that's been since the summertime.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to come forward at this time? Seeing none, public comments closed.
Consent calendar. Background information has been provided on all matters listed under the consent calendar, and these items are considered to be routine. All items under the consent calendar are normally approved by one motion. If discussion is requested on any item, that item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Anyone like to pull an item from consent calendar at this time? I'll pull number 6. Any other items? Seeing none, looking for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
I second.
Motion by Vieira, seconded by Kale. Call for the question.
Kale.
Yes.
Raymond, yes. Ambrose.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
Creighton.
Yes, motion passes. Item number 6, the City Council reorganization mayor's additional committee assignments. I think, Mr. Raymond, you had a question on this?
Oh, no, I just had asked you the other day, and you said we'd take care of whatever.
Right.
So I don't remember.
The MCG, or the One Voice, Raymond and Creighton were on that. I think it showed different.
Oh, and then I did have a question on the Bloss House.
Go ahead.
Is that part of the Historical Society, or is that an actual Bloss House committee?
I believe that's part of the historical
Okay.
committee as a representative of the city. There's always been a member on the council, or 2 members. Can you clarify that, Lori?
I don't know. I believe every committee that we had was posted on the previous agenda, so I'm not sure that we've had a representative for the last few years, so.
Okay, I'm one
I
of the
would
members.
assume that Bloss House would include the Historical Society because it's one and the same.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure if there was a separate entity for that, because it is technically city-owned.
Okay. Does that cover everything?
Yeah.
So
Motion-
am I hearing that we're changing the One Voice representative? It was incorrect. It should read Paul Creighton and Brian Raymond.
Correct.
Okay.
Looking for a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion approved, seconded. Motion approved by Vieira, seconded by Kale. Call for the question.
Vieira.
Yes.
Kale.
Yes.
Raymond, yes. Ambrose.
Yes.
Creighton.
Yes, motion passes. Resolution, item number 7, resolution approving rate study and adopting new rates for water and wastewater services. LaQuinder, you want to go ahead and take this?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. We have opened our public hearing to take any testimonies that are given. We would recommend the council to close the public hearing and receive the city clerk's finding to determine if there was any city received any protest from the majority of the property owners pursuant to the requirements of Proposition 218, and if appropriate, adopt resolution number 3067-19 approving Reftalis Comprehensive Water and Wastewater Cost of Service Study dated August 8, 2018, and adopting the new rates for water and wastewater services.
Okay.
I have Habib from Reftalis. He will be going over a presentation.
Before you do that, I want to read, the city did receive some protests. So, City Clerk Pro Tem Raymond's going to read those names. So if those people are here, we also took those, so if they're not here, they're still represented. So go ahead and read the names.
A total of 6 protests were received prior to the public hearing. If there are any other written protests, please submit them to me now. We have a total of, any other protests?
7 more.
Thank you. With 7 more, there's a total of 13 protests. It is the finding of the city clerk pro tem that the city did not receive protests from a majority of.
No. So we have to take. Yeah.
So at this time, we'll open the public hearing to see if there's any additional protests that'd like to come forward, in addition to the written ones.
So just to be really clear, people can submit their protest up until the time that we bring it back to the council and close public comment. At that point in time, we will have the clerk verify that the sufficient amount of protests have not been taken, but protests can still be submitted up and through closing of the public comment. And I will be very specific. I will stop the hearing and say that this is the last moment, and we'll take a second. And if we don't see anybody, then we'll close it. So
I'm going to reverse what I just said. We're going to do the presentation first, so that those that are there that may be on the fence, that may want to protest or may not want to, at least hear everything before we take those additional protests. So please go ahead. Albert Bichet's worked on our Prop 218 water rate study and wastewater study for the last, how many years?
I've actually been the financial advisor to the city since about 2000. We first refinanced water and wastewater bonds in 2003, and then helped finance the plant through 3 bond issues starting in 2008. The name of my firm, for those new council members and for those unfamiliar, is A.M. Bichet and Associates, and I've been in business for 22 years. I have with Habib Isaac is actually the person who did the rate water study. His firm actually did the rate water study back in 2008, and I'll let him speak.
Thank you, Albert. Mr. Mayor and council members, as well as city staff and constituents of the city. We were here last time back in August, September, and this is going through that presentation again. You're in a unique situation where you're actually, with a combination of water and wastewater, the way those both rates are working, you're actually going to see some savings to your typical average customer for the rest of this fiscal year if you move forward with this. And then we'll go through what are the recommendations for future years. I'm going to take a couple of the initial slides, then Albert's going to give a little bit more background of how we got to where we are historically, and then I'll continue on with some of the cost of service principles. But what I want to start with right away is the bill comparison. So let the cat out of the bag. This is on the right side, on the left side is where you are today, and it's broken out between sewer and water. And then on the right side is where you will be, and it shows that you'll have a savings of roughly just over $3, $4. The reason why is because of the refinancing that was done on the both bonds for the sewer enterprise. Because of that refinancing, there's so much savings on an annual basis, they're able to reduce the sewer, which shows that orange block going down. However, on water, you do have a deficit, so we do want to have that deficit be eliminated over time. We're not trying to do it in 1 year. We're doing it smooth, so over the course of the next 5 years, you're going to see that deficit go away. So there will be savings this year. Next year, it will be almost neutral, and so on and so forth. So with that, let me turn it back over to Albert to kind of go over some of the history of where you were.
Thank you, Habib. So as Habib said, just to give you some background, and some of you have heard this before, but this needs to be said again. How did we get to where we are on the water side? And I needed to say that despite staff recommendation and consultant recommendations, the council from 1992 to 2012, for 20 years, declined to raise rates or even to bring a Prop 218 hearing to the citizens. So that led to large structural deficits, which we're now trying to address. So again, it's very rare, if not unheard of, for things not to go up over a 20-year period. And that's why, even though there were some rate increases in 2013 to 2017, there needs to be another water rate increase. So giving some background on the wastewater side, using the powers under the Federal Clean Water Act, the EPA required the city to build a new wastewater treatment plant by 2012. So they basically were going to pull your wastewater permit, and you were required to build this new plant. So rates were actually raised starting in 2008. Raftellus did a rate study then, and it was required that you build about a $65 million treatment plant. So there were bonds that were issued in 2008, 2010, and 2011 to build the plant, and the bond issue were initially rated A. However, during the Great Recession, due to interfund borrowing, negative balances in the general fund, the water fund, and the garbage fund, the bonds on the wastewater side were downgraded, initially to BBB minus and then BB plus in September of 2012. So that was really a non-investment grade rating, anything below BBB minus. However, in September of 2015, the bonds were upgraded back to BBB minus. So that enabled us over the last 2 years to refinance the 2008, 2010, and 2011 bonds. And that was due to the higher bond rating, assured guarantee insurance, which upgraded the bonds to AA, and lower interest rates. So the bonds that we refinanced, as Abib said, really gave us a benefit because we saved over about a 35-year period $8.4 million with an annual average cash flow of approximately $819,000 a year. The one thing I do want to mention is, for those of you that were not here, but part of the bond covenants when you issued the bonds are that you're required to maintain a debt service coverage ratio of at least 1.2 times coverage. So a key factor in maintaining or upgrading of the bonds is that is to keep the ratio above this, the higher the better, and eliminating deficits in the general fund, sanitation fund, and water enterprise fund. So that was some background as to where we are. It's good news and bad news.
Thank you, Albert. So going to what happened before and where we are today, that water enterprise had a negative balance of negative 3.1 million in the end of 17-18. That's pretty significant, and that's due to the fact that rates stayed stagnant and didn't keep up with costs. And keep in mind, utilities enterprises are very capital intensive. There's a substantial amount of repair and replacement that has to be done in your infrastructure. And typically what happens if you don't have sufficient funds, what gets cut is your capital costs, and that capital cost doesn't go away. You're deferring it, so then what happens, you end up having more critical assets and ruptures and outbursts that you're fixing on the fly as opposed to being more proactive and preventive. Kind of like your car. If you do preventive maintenance, you're going to have less costs compared to reacting to not maintaining your car and something happens to it. The water enterprise is very healthy at 6.8 million in reserves, but they're separate enterprises that should be self-funding on its own. They can't intermix because of...
You mean wastewater?
Oh, I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said water.
Oh, I'm sorry, wastewater, yes. Wastewater is very healthy, but they're separate enterprise funds, so they should be self-sufficient on their own. And then we mentioned the refinancing. So here's your cash flow for the next 10 years. I don't expect you to look at every single number, but for water, here's your revenues. We have your expenses. And this is just your operating costs. So on an annual basis, you'll see you have net positive cash flow in the next couple of years, but then it goes into a deficit because your revenues don't keep up with your cost. And this is just operating. This does not include addressing the reserve, and it also doesn't address your capital needs. So that's the other side of the coin. What we're showing here is basically what I just showed you in numbers, but in a bar graph. The top graph is your operating, where if you see red on top of the bars, then that's the surplus in funding above your expenses. But then in future years, you'll see that you can't keep up with the costs. And then the bottom graph is your capital needs above and beyond operating. So this is just to continue your repair and replacement of what's being depreciated every year to keep up with your investment. And then with wastewater, here's your total revenues, here's your expenses. So you have quite a bit of net positive cash in wastewater. And that's mainly because of your refinancing of all those 3 bond issues. This is what's going to allow us to be able to reduce rates. It's very rare for agencies to be able to reduce rates, and it's going to be able to offset the need on the water side. So here's current financials for wastewater. You see there's a lot of red on top of the operating bars, so then that's surplus funds that could go to your capital as well as your reserves. So wastewater, you're doing fine. So the recommended financial plans, this is combined, increase rates on water while decreasing rates for wastewater. So wastewater rates can be decreased by 15%, and water rates increase varies based on the size of the meter. But if we look at your typical meter size of your customers, just 3/4 inch, using 19 units of water, the net impact is actually more than $1. You're going to see a savings of $3 for someone using 19 units of water. And granted, it varies depending on where you are in the spectrum of usage. And then for future years, we recommend water increase by 4% each year, and then wastewater is indexed by CPI. The reason why that's important is because when you went to your refinancing, what you told bondholders and prospective bondholders was that they will be indexed based on CPI. So you want to make sure that you show that you're moving forward with that type of approach. Granted, it doesn't mean you have to increase those rates if you don't need it, but you should look at it every year, and that should be your litmus test of whether you need to or not. So recommended financial plan, here's water, we're ramping it up, and what that does is shows that your deficit that you have in your reserves is now going to, over the 5 years, be able to be eliminated and then get into positive cash. Ideally, what you should have in your coffers for water is at least 90 days of operating reserve, liquid cash on hand to fund your month-to-month expenses. And then you want to have at least 1 year's worth of your capital expense. So then you know that your capital projects for that year don't have to stop because you don't have funds available. And you're able to show that you have funds in hand to award contracts to your contractors. So that's very common and very standard practice. You can also have additional reserves of emergency reserve based on critical assets and rate stabilization reserve. But right now we're focused on just eliminating the deficit that you currently have. And then with wastewater, as I mentioned, we are able to reduce rates. The limiting factor of why it's 15% is because, as Albert mentioned, you still have to show that you have 100 to 120% coverage on your debt service payments. So for us to, when we reduce it by 15%, the gray trend line on top of that graph is 120% coverage. The orange trend line is what your actual coverage is. So you'll see that we're just over that coverage. We want to make sure we maintain and show to bondholders we're maintaining that coverage even with the reduction in rates, okay? And with that, the bottom graph shows that blue trend line that's going across. You notice that there's a steep decrease in slope from winter next. That's that 15% savings that you're giving to your customers. But then we still show that we have positive net cash flow. Now I'll go to the cost of service. With the water rates, we have your expenses, we have other revenues that offset, and then the amount that we need to generate from rates for 19 is 5.1 million. Keep in mind, you are not going to generate that revenue if you move forward today. Reason being because we were modeling this that it was going to be approved back in September. So you lost time of those rates being in place. So most likely, if you approve it today, you're being more around 5 million. You're going to be losing that % increase that we were anticipating. So keep that in mind. Time is not on your side right now. But with our analysis, We updated the fixed charges. We show the components that make up the fixed charge. We have a cost for customer service and billing that doesn't matter the size of the meter. Everyone gets charged a certain amount per month for having an account. And then we have other costs that's more based on the size of the meter, like infrastructure costs, things of that sort, that then is spread based, those that have a bigger size meter pay a little bit more. And then above and beyond that, we also have non-metered accounts. So one thing we did with non-metered, we showed how much is their obligation for every single component, whether it be water supply, peak cost, but ultimately the amount that should become from the non-metered is 2.4 million. And then, excuse me, and then we allocated that cost based on the different allocation bases that you have based on the frontage of your customers, because we don't know how much water they're using. So frontage is used as a proxy to say the more frontage you have, the bigger size lot you have, the more you need water. So we kept that maintained, but one thing we did change was you had a 500 square feet building square footage plus or minus if you're less than or equal to or over that amount. We changed that to multifamily because essentially those are multifamily units. So then we have multifamily, and then when it gets into single family, then it's based on the frontage. It didn't make sense to have building square footage for some customers and then frontage on other customers, so we eliminated that. And then for meter rates, because when you're a mix of metered and non-metered, non-metered we're assuming 19 units of water for the base level of the 50 feet. So for meter customers, we're including 19 T-gals, 19 units of water in their fixed charge as well. And we recommend keeping that in place until everyone is metered, and then you could charge for every unit of water. So right now, the meter customers have 25 T-gals, but that's too much based on the current consumption trends. Because of the drought and coming back from the drought, everyone's more conscientious of how much water they use. So water efficiency is now setting a new baseline of what's typical for usage. So 19 T-gals is plenty for your typical customer. So with that allotment of water plus the customer service and the charge based on meter size, these are the proposed rates for 19 through 2023. And then we show the uniform rates for the usage amount. So if you're over 19 units of water, then you get charged $1.39. One thing too, even though we're showing 5 years of rates, Prop 218 only lets you set rates for every 5 years. So then you have to come back and you have to go out to your customers again. It's a ways to show transparency and that you're always showing what's going on the enterprises. However, it may appear that you're always increasing rates, but it's more the process to show your customers that we're doing a full report. It's comprehensive, and we're showing how the cost incurred is tied to the rates we need. And then again, here's the bill of impact, current bill versus proposed bill, and this is savings that could be achieved for the rest of the months for this fiscal year. And then looking at other agencies and Atwater, you'll see that we're based on where other agencies are. Some of these are still working through rate studies right now. Actually, I know Livingston just went out for a rate study, and they're going to be doing one in the next couple months. So their rates are going to be adjusting as well. And they're pretty close to you. I think they're only like 15 minutes away.
And on that slide right there, where we show 111 and Merced's only 77, those communities are going to be building $100 million wastewater treatment plants, $70 million treatment plants.
Right.
This community already built its
Already
treatment
did.
plant, so we're going to be, in just a few years, we're going to be the cheapest ones on that chart.
That's correct. They are in the process of doing those plants. They're going to have to issue bonds, and you're in a good situation in terms of already billing those requirements.
So our costs are pretty stable and leveled out. They're going to see draconian rises in their utility rates.
Correct. And with your refinancing, those are set debt service payments, so those aren't going to increase anymore. And with that, I can answer any questions they may have that I didn't address in my PowerPoint. And
the protest now. Okay. You want to take it now, though?
No, we got to confirm.
Okay. The public comment can come up now.
water. Gabriel Santos, 3391 Shoreline Drive. I'm a parent and a son of both of my elderly parents that live in the city of Atwater. I'm also a landlord. So the issue that I have, I was here on September 24th when we received the same presentation. The concern that I have is the drinking water quality in the city of Atwater. We have an issue here, and thank you again for allowing me the time to be here today, but I would have no issue with increasing any water rates if we had good quality water. We don't. So if we had good quality water, we would have no issues. But currently our water is not good quality water. And what I would like to know is, what is the city of Atwater doing to fix that? And the issue I have is, last time when we were here and we had this same discussion, different members, there was no plan in place. And if I can only speak for myself and my family, and hopefully some of the other 6 community members that submitted letters, that if we had good quality water, we would be supporting this increase. But we don't. And the last letter that we received from the city of Atwater was on December 10th of 2018, that clearly states, and I'd like to just review directly from the city of Atwater's letter: you do not need to alternate water supply such as bottled water. This is not an emergency. I'm not sure what constitutes an emergency, but it's been an ongoing problem and we know about it. If it had been, we would have been notified immediately. However, some people who drink water containing 123 TCP, which is the chemical that we have in our water, exceeds the allowable limit that's set, have an increased risk of cancer. If you have health issues concerning the consumption of this water, you may wish to consult your doctor. So here's what the city of Atwater is clearly stating that they're doing for the community members and taxpayers of the city of Atwater. We're working with the State Water Resource Control Board Division of Drinking Water to evaluate the water supply and researching options to correct the problem. This may include treating the water to remove the 123 TCP. We anticipate resolving the problem within 3 years. But as of September 24th of 2018, there was no plan in place. So it's like we're rolling the dice, hoping to increase this, and maybe things will get better. So my question is, what are we, the city of Atwater, doing to fix our water quality? I'm happy that we're doing good on the other wastewater treatment side, but when we see populations of Merced of 80,000+ and we have 29,000, I've got a concern.
Okay, your time's up, but I'll address your comments after you sit down. What is it? That's a great question, what he just asked. What are we doing as a municipality to address the contaminant he's talking about? So we're currently in litigation, have been for a few years. If we win that, that's great. But if we don't win that, you guys saw the charts, where to do the wellhead treatment just for one well is about $1 million a wellhead, not counting the well that's already there. So you have to bring in these granulated activated carbon units. They're 20,000-pound vessels. Cost about $80,000 to fill all 3 of them up. Then you run the water through that and you have to maintain that. It costs $40,000 to $60,000 to change the vessels out when they come out to take the contaminant out and put it back in. So if we don't win the lawsuit and we move forward, we'll never be able to do anything about it. We'll always be behind. We're $3 million behind right now. We're running a business that's not making money. We shouldn't be open for business in the waterfront, technically. So what we're asking for is that the ratepayers and the customers help make it a stable utility so that we could start doing these things, because if we don't win the lawsuit, we're stuck with this regardless. And if we do win it, we're going to take that money. The plan is we take that money, install the wellhead treatment, take it out 20 years, but we're still going to have to pay to maintain it and do other things. So if we're lucky enough to win that, then we could spend the additional money on the pipes that are breaking, the rusty water that you guys have when you wash your clothes and the clothes turn pink when you put bleach in there. All the things that should have been done, this has a plan. We have a water capital plan, master plan. So in that, it lays out how many line feet of water we should replace, water lines we should replace, transition from gas chlorine to tablet or liquid to do other things. But we can't go forward yet to do those until we get money coming in, and we know that's coming in, then we can afford to hire contractors to start doing that. So that's our current plan right now, is we need to become stable. Anyone else like to come forward and public comment?
Karen Stahl. I live at 861 Fir Avenue. Not well. I have problems with my throat. My concerns are not the rate increase. I don't mind that. But again, just what the gentleman said is we have really bad water. And it's not the 0.005 MCL limit. It's in some places 22.2% higher than that. That when you say that we can possibly have cancer down the road, I think that's based on 0.005 contaminant, not the contaminant that we have. So my concerns are, if we raise the rates, and I think you just answered it, that's not going to, the money is not going to be put towards fixing our contaminated water. Am I correct?
I'll let you finish your statement, then I'll answer your question.
By what I'm hearing is we're going to fix it based on a lawsuit. And until then, we continue to drink contaminated water at an extremely high level. So I guess my question is any of the money going to help us have better drinking water and bathing, washing our dishes?
Okay, so to answer, you sit down, I answer them. Yes on both of those. Yes, we're hoping we win the lawsuit. Hope is over here. If it doesn't happen, then we have to deal with it. However, if we don't, we still are moving forward with plans with this rate study that we'll start addressing the wellhead treatment. We'll start with one well and move to the next one. It's going to take a lot longer if we don't win, but the plan is to start addressing this. So by law, we have to address it. We're doing something. We're formulating a plan. We've hired, city manager hired consultants to see what each well site's different, so it costs, some cost more, some cost less because of the size. You need a lot of space. We have a couple well sites that are smaller than this room, and you have to put these big vessels in, so that may be acquiring additional property. So our plan is to start, regardless of the lawsuit, and move forward to treat that contaminant. And if we win the lawsuit, we do it all at once, and then we maintain it for X years on the settlement, but we also start removing and replacing the water lines and other things in the water system that are in need of repair.
Just to clarify as well, as the mayor, we haven't had, up to the last rate increase in 2012, for the previous 20 years prior to that, we haven't had any rate increase, so we've not been able to do any capital improvement projects. This being said, this is an important project, but if we do not do the increases, again, we're going to be in the same shape that we were in before. This isn't a revenue generating fund, and that's not what we're looking to do. We're looking to pass, obviously, the savings that we can do for the sewer fund, we're passing along to the ratepayers, and in the water fund, we're looking to do the capital improvement projects that are necessary to provide the community with clean drinking water.
So just to recap on top of that, both of your questions about the water system, we do have some water lines that this council is going to be replacing this summer on Winton Way that are in pretty bad shape. So you'll see some, for the first time in a long time, construction beginning to start addressing your water system and improving that, because we have issues on that water system on Winton Way right now. So I hope that answered your question. Sure, come on up.
Do I have to state my name again?
No, go ahead.
What would you consider an emergency? Because I feel
currently we are treating this like emergency, but I have to drink the water and bathe in it, and you have to drink, we can't not do anything, and short of everybody not doing anything, we have no money to fix it. So it is an emergency, and we're trying to move forward with this so that we can start hiring contractors, consultants to get us where we need to go with implementing the physical part of it.
You don't think telling the consumers, not in a letter that comes in our bills that we throw away, but in a letter maybe that you might want to drink bottled water would be a good idea?
So most of these standards are set out by the state. The definition of emergency would be determined by the State Water Resources Control Board. We're not at that level.
And just to put it in perspective, we're talking parts per trillion. So,
yeah, I understand.
I mean, it's a lot, and I don't take this lightly. It's serious, and I do think about it. And we're drinking water because there's no water fountain up here, but out of a bottle tonight. But we're ahead of the other communities because we've entered into this litigation. Our plan. We need to do a better job probably explaining what our plan is and what we're doing. But it's in parts per trillion if you drink a lot of it, and it does affect young children and the elderly.
That's it, at .005. We're not at that.
We're much higher than that.
We're much higher.
Right.
At some wells, 22.2 times that amount.
But this is
so you hear my voice?
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and we're addressing that. So I hope that helped. Anyone else from the public like to come forward?
I just had a quick question. Sherry Mead, Atwater. Before the state changed their ratios, our water was at a certain level. Then the state of California changed the ratios. Our water was okay. There were not a lot of issues before the ratio changed, but then when they changed it to the parts per trillion, that's when now there's an issue. So I think that there's kind of, I don't want to say unnecessary, but there's a higher concern where our water's been okay before this state, because we're in California, hyper everything. So is that my understanding correct? I mean, so our water hadn't changed, it's just that the ratios that the state put on the cities changed,
Right.
correct?
I'll answer your question on that. So what she's talking about is it used to be a maximum contaminant level, MCL, of parts per million. So 5 parts per million was the initial threshold because that's as far as the laboratories in the state of California could test. Then they determined it's still showing up and they went to parts per billion. And then they've been doing research, and this is a fairly new discovered contaminant in the water supply, less than 30 years old. It's been out there since the 50s. They used it in sweet potatoes for fumigate to get the nematodes out of the ground so it didn't damage the roots. Then at parts per billion, UCLA and some others did some experimental testing on it and discovered that it created these things in mice, the potential cancer and other things. And then the state of California took it another step further beyond the federal limit and went to MCL of parts per trillion. So it's gone from, we're drinking the same water all these years, to parts per million, parts per billion, now parts per trillion, where it's almost impossible to attain compliance with that type of detection. So parts per trillion was really hard. I worked with UCLA when they initially did this study, and it was extremely difficult to even find it, 1 part per trillion in a liter of water. But they found it, and they determined that it's best that we start doing something. So it's not a declared emergency, but it's a health risk. So we're addressing it, and that's why we took it serious as a community, and they got into litigation with the people that contaminated it and supplied it. So we're actually light years ahead of most agencies when it comes to this topic. Hope that answered your question about how it was. Nobody knew about it, then they discovered it, and then they put a higher threshold, and then California went all in and went parts per trillion. And then we're stuck, us, to pay the water bill to remove this contaminant. Anyone else?
Go ahead, son. You sure?
Poor Keith's getting left in the back there.
I know. Mary Ann Amaranth, 3561 Emily Way. I echo the same concerns. Obviously, I don't like the fact that our water's got issues, but it's all up and down the Central Valley because guess what? We're
It is.
agriculture. But my other concern is increasing our rates aren't going to necessarily increase our revenue. And my concern is I sat here at a meeting months ago where our past attorney, basically I was told that didn't want to mess with litigation because of people not paying their bills. So what's going to change our accountability for collecting from citizens that aren't paying their water bill? Because I hear about it every single meeting. We all know the person. It's a constant. So my concern is I don't mind doing my part, but I want to pay everybody else's too. So especially since I'm not getting clean, so now I got to tolerate it's all you.
Okay. Okay, I'll answer your question.
Okay.
So, under Prop 218, no one's allowed to ride the bus for free. So everybody that is using the utility or the service has to pay. So there's no free ride for any utility customer in Atwater, period. So you need to know that for sure, that that's not going on. There may be some delinquent bills that the city may have struggled with in the past to collect. Right, and there's, as the city manager said, there's processes in place to collect, and we do shut the water off monthly on over 30, 40 accounts a month.
It's usually more than that. On average, it's about 200 people every month.
So, sure.
My concern is that we have at least 28,000 citizens in this city, and we had 13 people opposing rate increases. I saw today when I went to come screech in and hand in mine, people don't look at those. I'm going to be honest with you. They literally grab their bill, they're all panically, they're writing their checks, and they're like, so I'm concerned that we have 28,000 people and 13 people care.
Okay, I'll answer that. No, I think, one, we've been doing this process for almost 6 months. We didn't just start it, so it's been going on, ongoing. I think when people discover things they're not happy with, they do come down. We've noticed and sent the utility bill over and over again. We've probably gone more than any other municipality as far as getting to where we're at today with this specific rate increase for a city. So I think most people understand that the cost of I think as initial savings of over $1, then at the end of the 5-year period, it goes up to maybe $4 or $5 or $15 increase in the 4 or 5 years, which if you've been following this Great Recession, everything gets smaller and costs more, and our power costs at the well sites are ridiculous, in the millions per year. We pay a lot for that, or we all pay that. The chemicals we buy, everything that we do in the water department has gone up just like everything else, but our rates haven't gone up. Our wages have gone up, our health care has gone up. So, Ms. Vieira?
You can finish and I'll talk when you're done.
So that's where we're at with to answer that question. Go ahead and come on up if you have another.
I want to just make a quick comment, Marianne, to that. So it's our responsibility to put the information out there, but if they don't read it in one piece of mail that we sending out another piece of mail, why would they read that? And then it's really expensive, 50 cents a letter. And we have to be responsible and send it, but as residents, you have to be responsible and read it. When your PG&E bill comes, if you don't read it, you know what I mean? So it is surprising, and it's not just this, but it's also amazing when we'll have State of the Cities or whatever, and 6 people show up. You get a lot of people who are upset or complain, but they don't want to come and put input or hear the answers or ask the questions or give feedback. If there was a better way to reach all of the citizens and it was economically beneficial for everyone, it's not that we wouldn't do it. How else? We don't have everybody's email, and then how can you sit and, staff time to type it? Everybody gets a utility letter, so it's our best method to present it, and if it's not read by the community, it's unfortunate.
The city manager can also explain about the types of communication we gave out.
So you're
She's going to cut me off.
I am.
You haven't started yet.
So your concern is our concern too, and we tried to address that in every venue that we could. We sent notices to not only in the newsletter that is enclosed with the utility bill, but also to the property owners. We did it, we posted it in the newspaper, we have it on our website. So we've used every venue that we have available to us to make sure that everybody is aware of it. It was. That's a requirement, and it was. No, in the Merced
No, the
Go ahead and state your
The
name.
Witten Times listed Witten water, everything that was in it, and it wasn't good.
And we did the same. Go ahead, state your name and what your
Helen
question was.
Emmerant, you know me. I've been
I
here
do,
for
but-
6 years. The thing is, the lack of concern worries me. And we had the same thing at McSwain because we've been having all kinds of break-ins out there. You go to the meeting, there's nobody there. But I'll tell you what, you raise the rates, you're not going to get in this building. It'll be jam-packed. I understand why you have to raise them, but I don't know how you can rattle their cages to make them. But at one meeting, and it goes way back, there were a lot of people that hadn't paid their bills. In fact, Linda Dash volunteered to go out and collect them. So go back and look at the meetings and take her up on it.
Well, I think staff's been working on that too, as Lori said, so.
Okay, I won't complain anymore.
Keith?
Keith Plosky, Atwater. Mr. Mayor, council members. At the September 24th, 2018 council meeting, I asked if the water bill increase was used to pay back the $3 million. Ms. Crichton, you answered by saying no, that the general fund was making payments to the enterprise fund. So I'm going to talk about some things that you may know or you may not know. In the 2017-18 budget, $1,472,080 was transferred from the water fund, wastewater fund, and sanitation fund, and was put into the general fund for administrative services. In the 2018-19 budget, $1,936,000 was transferred from the water fund, wastewater fund, and sanitation fund, and put in the general fund for administrative services. I had a meeting with the city manager and finance director on November 18th, and I was told this money is used for paying a percentage of employees' wages and benefits. Employees who work within the city manager department, HR department, and finance department, and who do a percentage of their work within these enterprise areas are being paid by these funds. The percentage in which they are paid is determined by the city manager. I talked with a city within Merced County and was told they have 2 employees hired to work 100% of their time on utility billing, and therefore only those 2 employees are paid through enterprise funds. The city of Merced is double the size of the city of Atwater. However, they can do the job with 2 employees, which takes Atwater 22 employees according to the information given to me from my meeting. In a review report dated December 2014, for the period July 11, 2011 through June 30th, 2013, prepared by John, last name is C-H-I-A-N-G, California State Auditor. It showed 2 employees were being paid from these funds at that time. The State Auditor found that to be very questionable. A letter was sent to the State Auditor regarding this. I received a text message from them after I sent the letter to them, and then received a telephone call from them about 2 to 3 weeks later. You may want to do your research to have the proper questions when contacted by them. Mr. Raymond, You have voted against raising our water bills every time this matter has come up. Hope we can count on you to do the same at this time. To 2 new council members, I can only ask you to look into what I just told you and vote no on raising our water bills. The budget, the 2017-18 budget.
Your time's expired, Mr. Pulaski.
One more thing.
Wrap it up.
2017-2018 budget to the 2018-19 budget shows an increase of $529,000, even though no new employees or no raises were given during that time.
Thank you.
I asked these guys if $2 million was not taken from these funds, would you still be recommending our water to be increased?
Thank you. So real quick to address part of that, because it sounds confusing, we collect in our utility funds pooled cash, so it goes to the bank. And when you see the transfers, they go every year. So you have this big pile of money that comes in for the water and the wastewater and sanitation revenue in. We pool that money, and then we make payments to ourselves for the operation and maintenance costs through the year. That's why those transfers are. So they're not supplementing the general fund, but they're just being put back in to pay their expenses. And staff's looked at for the employees, whether they have a nexus for that, so you could use the formula of a full-time employees, or if you have a lot of employees doing a little bit of work, their percentage of that. And we are currently looking into that to make sure that we're not overdoing or underdoing that very thing. Did you want to address any of the other comments?
I could just make one comment about what was just stated. It's very common for cities to have a cost allocation plan to account for the central services that provide support to the enterprise funds as well as the public works. If you were an independent water district or independent wastewater district, you would have a general manager, you would have a finance director, you would have an HR person, you would have admin staff doing the billing. But with the city, you're using the finance director of the entire city. So it's not uncommon to have a portion of the cost be related to central service support of the general fund.
Anyone else like to come forward at this time?
If you don't mind if I ask these gentlemen here, where do you gentlemen reside?
Can you, Mr. Hernandez, can you direct a question to the chair, please? Mr. Hernandez.
Point of order, Mayor.
Mr. Hernandez.
Okay.
The speakers need to address.
Let me ask you this.
You got it.
Back in March of 18, the Merced Union High School District addressed this issue having to do with water. Back in October, you, Paul, sat here and you questioned the gentleman from the department here with the city as to how come he didn't communicate with you having to do with this water issue, which he knew about from back then. Now, this water increase, according to some of the people that I have talked to, especially seniors, people that are in their 80s, you know, you don't have no consideration as to freezing the water rates for those folks. This community here was built by people in the Air Force at Castle Air Force Base. For all of you that are up there that don't know that, you should know that. And these people now have come to the age where they are widowed. And they will cry on your door, all right? Because they cannot afford an increase. And it's up to you folks up there, you know, to take care of these people because they carried this city all this other time. You cannot impose an increase on people that cannot pay it. You're going to deprive them of other things in their living. And I'm going to tell you something. When folks start passing away because they cannot afford to buy their needs, they can't. Cindy says, well, they should come up here to complain. What the hell, you know, they can't even drive. How are you going to get these people up here to, you know, unless you go pick them up to come here? You need to have more consideration as to what your responsibility is here to the people of this city and to the people that are seniors. You need to find a way, among all of you up there that think, to go out and find this out. None of you have ever gone out and asked anybody else, how would you do it? You're just doing what you're doing because you think you know what the hell you're doing, and you don't. I can already tell you, in my thinking, you have to individually go out there and investigate who is having a difficulty paying for water or the utilities. There's different circumstances out there in the community. I can tell you because I've asked. And you need to get off your duff and start doing that. Somebody has to be assigned that to get it done. Because otherwise you're going to get a lot of people here, like you said, yeah, you're going to have this building full of folks, except the ones that should be here. It's up to you. I don't see this council here doing anything for these seniors, and I tell you what, when I start getting wind of it, by talking to these people that I do, I tell you what, I'm going to bring it right up here and I'm going to raise hell with it, because these seniors don't deserve to be neglected. That's all there is to it.
Thank you very much. So to answer a couple of your questions on that. One, we do rely on the experts. You're right. We're not experts at raising water rates or lowering water rates or not doing anything about it. But we do rely on the experts, and we have them here tonight, and they've already testified and provided documentation. So the hardest thing to do when you're sitting up here is that you listen on one side where this contaminant and other things affect the young and the elderly, and if we don't do something, then we're inflicting harm on them for that. That if we do something, we're all of a sudden making them go broke. We did something unique in this process, which is actually lowering the utility bill the first year with a slight increase years after that. That's never done. I've never seen that ever. So I'm not going to sit up here and want to raise rates on anyone. I don't think any of the council members want to. But you can't continuously have people sitting up here that do nothing. We have water issues we need taken care of. So I would love to give everybody a rebate, but like with Mary Ann, we can't carry anybody, elderly or the young guys. We have to run it as a business. It's a utility company, and unfortunately it does cost money to operate. Their PG&E at their house has probably gone up 20%. We're talking very minimal, if anything, that's going to go up in a couple of years. So it's difficult to be up here, and this is the worst part of politics, is rates. But if we don't do something now, I guarantee you, when I'm gone, they're going to be eating things like Livingston and these other cities where they go up $20, $30, $40 a month. Then what are you going to do instead of $1 a month? So it's hard, it's not easy, and we just have to make the best decision we can for the people in Atwater. Anyone else you want to come up? No, your time's expired, sir. Yes. So what Lori was just telling me is that the worst thing we could do for you guys is do nothing and then come back in 5 or 10 years and hit you with a $20 increase, which is what we're trying to avoid. A little bit we can absorb. Everything we own is going up in cost. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that's what 5 councils did that. Between 1992 and 2012, 5 councils decided not to raise rates. So what happens? Rates have to go up even more because they weren't raised during that period of time. And by the way, I'm from the city of Lathrop. I moved there in June. I'm about 55 miles away from here. My first water bill when I moved in June was, water and sewer was about $300. And got it down to about $160. So as you said, there are a lot of other cities that are approaching this. Their plants are going to be a lot more expensive than what you paid. So while nobody likes water rate increases, I am proud to say that with this council and with this staff, we were able to lower significantly the debt service that makes this possible, because as you said, it's very rare to see a combined bill go down. So what you're saying is you're actually lowering rates. You're not voting to raise rates. You're voting to lower combined rates by $4.65 a month for the first 6 months.
We are.
And that's rare. So I'm pleased with what we did. I know this is difficult, but had we not refinanced those bonds, we wouldn't be looking at that kind of savings. And again, just to mention the savings, it was $8.4 million in today's dollars, which equated to about $820,000 a year. That's significant.
So that's doing due diligence as a community, as a city, with staff and the council to be proactive, because we didn't have to do that. We had staff and the city manager at the time being proactive, trying to find ways to save the citizens money. So we're doing a pretty dang good job. Your staff's doing a great job. We just got to keep doing what we're doing so that we don't fall behind. Mr. Hernandez, you want to come back up for a couple of minutes?
Time business going out. The one thing I was going to say is this. You know, these seniors that I've ran into here in several years now, all right? They cannot, you know, they're locked into their income. They're on fixed incomes. They don't get raises. When these people, you know, lose their spouses, they're most of the time is the man that passes. The lady stays at home, they own the home, but they cannot get along with the income that they get because the spouse, the main.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, if you know exactly what I'm saying, then you need, you know, I'm not talking about giving breaks to the people, you know, that are, just don't want to pay. I'm talking about seniors and disabled, all right? That's what I'm talking about. You know, in those particular cases, individually, you got the police department here. You got other assets, you know, fire department. When they go to a house on an emergency call, that they come back, you get the information from them, and you know what? She doesn't have any food. She passed out because she's dehydrated or whatever it is. And she can't buy anything because she has to pay her water bill she's complained about. Then you send an investigator out there to find out about this particular individual. There are some that have their sons that live with them, that are wage earners.
Okay.
All right? And there's others that live alone.
Thank you very much. We hear what you're saying, Mr. Hernandez. It's not easy. There's no one checkbox fix all. So, council, you guys want to weigh in on anything? Or I'll close the comment. So, anyone else like to come forward this time? Go ahead.
Andre Santos, Atwater. I wanted to come to this meeting, first time I come here, because I really wanted to know what it was all about. I'm satisfied. And I'm not sure if you were only expecting objections. I'm not here for an objection. I want to support what you guys are doing. I think it's right. It's the right thing to do. It's the time to do it. And unfortunately, what this gentleman brought up, of course, is true. So my suggestion would be, and I'll leave it here for the community to see if somebody would probably form a committee or even through the city and maybe go out there, identify these households that probably can't afford as much as anybody else the increase, and maybe support them somehow by fundraising, you name it. But you cannot let this go away just because some people cannot afford it while you have the rest of the community that's going to suffer through it, and even the future people that are going to come over and be taxpayers as well. So the suggestion is go forth, full throttle, just give it what we need, also increasing the quality of the water, and but also supporting the people that cannot afford it. This is not something that we're going to. I don't think it's not that hard. I know that the politics is very hard, but I think this is not a good or bad choice. There's only one choice: is move forward and identify if there's any other problems, because people cannot afford it. I mean, we're 28,000 people here altogether. we can help each other and help the people that cannot afford it, and I think we are able to do it.
Well said.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to come forward at this time?
And just-
You've already had your public comment,
I can't do it again?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh. Can I just say it real fast?
Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and open it up to the council. Yeah, she did.
Twice. You haven't gone twice?
Okay. Okay. We're going to continue the public comment.
So I would like to just again reiterate, I appreciate everything that this council has done. I want to make sure that we acknowledge that. I know for a fact that several of you sitting up there have done a lot, and unfortunately you've been given an unfortunate circumstance. So I want to say thank you for that. On the flip side of that, I would definitely like to see, and thank you, Ms. Waterman, for saying that things are getting done to come up with a plan. I was not impressed on September 24th when we're being told in a letter that we're hoping to fix this in 3 years, but we don't have a plan. So I would just like to see a plan in place that says this is what we're going towards. I don't care if it's one well in the next 3 years, but that's forward-moving progress. The other thing that I'd like to state is that not everybody is metered in the city of Atwater, and I would love to see a plan on that. My house is metered. If I go over that 19T, I'm paying for it, and I know that because I put a pool in. So, but I would love to see the plan on that meter and make it equal for everybody.
Well
Thank you
said.
very much for everything you do.
Thank you. You want to come up?
It's just a thought, like the first year, the rates are gonna go down, but then after that, they're gonna increase slightly. I know like with PG&E, they offer handicapped and certain households a percentage discount, so maybe that's something that can be brought up in the future.
We can't.
Or if they, not if they have documentation and all of that, no.
Everybody's the same.
Okay, all right.
If I may, we do offer citizens a discount.
We
If
do?
you're above 65 years and older, yes, we do offer some discount.
Quinder? No.
So all the rates legally from a court case have to be the same. What you can use is fines and charges such as that aren't based off of the water consumption you do to create some kind of assistance program. So everybody's legally required to pay the same rate.
Yeah, well, I just figured there's gotta be some sort of a way to supplement that for those that need help.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment at this time and open it up to council.
Do you want to
Go ahead.
address this question about the meters?
Oh, that's a good idea.
So we're closed, public comments closed.
Public comments closed, so
You can still finish. So just so you're clear, so that there's no confusion about what's going on, as soon as we finish council comments, that'll be the last moment to turn in protest,
So he meant turn in protest at the very end of that, no more comments. You wanted to talk about the meters, what we're doing. What's our plan with the meters?
So the city is required by 2025 to have meters in all homes. Currently, the city is looking at grant funding or some other avenue to assist in funding the meters as well as the installation into some of these homes. Currently, as new homes or construction is being done on homes that are not metered, they're required to put a meter into their home.
So to answer the question on the meters, we have a drop dead deadline. So with the water fund, you have to hire people to help you do things, sometimes attorneys, sometimes chemists, sometimes other things. So to answer your question on the water meter, we don't have a funding source or a plan right now this minute to go out tomorrow to put them in. But with the municipal budget and the water capital plan, the program that we have requires us to do something. So we need to do something sooner than later so that the ones that aren't metered are being treated like the ones that are being metered. And that's very important. And the scope of things, that there's opportunities now with the governor's office and some other stuff with the water conservation that we're applying for grants to get the meters in. If we can't, we're gonna have to start putting those in as we go, and we're trying to, the water department's actually doing it in some neighborhoods with the water capital that we do have, with what little bit we do have. So when they have a water leak or a water issue, they go out and repair it, and then they do hang a new water meter on that service, but we don't do the whole neighborhood. So we're doing the best we can with what we have right now, but I agree we need to have a physical, verbal plan on what we're gonna do and how we're gonna start executing that, regardless of whether we get a grant or we don't get a grant. Did that help you at all? Yeah. Okay. John, you have any questions?
No, just a comment.
Okay.
I appreciate and I believe that we all hear your concerns, and we've taken this very, very seriously. We've been dealt a hand of living in an agricultural community that didn't think about our water system. And actually, I really don't think they really cared very much about our water system in the city. And we're working hard to try to correct that as best we can. Like the council stated, we're looking at trying to obtain some grant money so that we can do that, so that we can work without having a big fat wallet. And we do take in consideration other people and try to help them out, and we try to consider everyone, not just, I don't know how many times I've been sitting in that audience and heard Councilman Raymond say, my mom or my grandmother's on fixed income. And trust me, we try and we care about those things.
We do. Mr. Embry, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. When we talked about the wastewater savings, was that annually or is that a one-time savings?
Well, the way that the savings is calculated is what you would have paid had we not refinanced the bonds, and that was the millions of dollars that you said. But and on an annual basis, it was about $819,000. So you're basically it would be like refinancing your home. Your former payments were $3,000. Now they're $2,500 or $2,000. So that savings is, I mean, your debt service is fixed, and those savings are there. Does that answer your question?
Well, it's fixed for how long, though?
Well, to the life of the bonds. The bonds are probably, they go out to 20, 30, 35, maybe 2035.
Okay.
Mr. Raymond?
Just kind of,
yeah, did you finish?
Oh, did you? I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
Did push the button, you know. So of course then when we're talking about years here, years of savings, we're talking fiscal years, not calendar years, correct? So if we were to pass this today, our residents will only see the savings for 6 months, and then July 1st, the rates would increase.
That's correct. It's on a fiscal basis. The debt service that I mentioned was on a fiscal basis, and the rates are typically on a fiscal basis.
Just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Mr. Raymond?
Was it my turn?
It's your turn.
Oh, okay, thank you. I know I keep hearing that we're in this position because no one raised rates for a long time, but also during that time they had a 20-25% reserve fund balance, so things were a little different. However, with the wastewater rate reduction, the bond refinancing, fantastic. I was a big supporter of that from the very beginning. Love it. Reducing rates is always a great thing. A couple questions is, we just got done with the previous rate increase. With still some of the highest rates around for water, how is it that we're not able to keep up? How does our cost keep going up, but we can't meet that obligation in the future? That's what I'm not understanding. I don't understand how we're getting to that point.
So I'm going to try, and then you can answer that. So there's a lot of things as the rates go up, and this is my interpretation, and you need to correct me if I'm wrong, that as you have a system, you're supposed to be maintaining water line replacements. You're supposed to be doing upgrades at the wellheads. You're supposed to be thinking about the TCP 123. They put those rates in place 5 years ago under 218. We've collected that money. We're smaller portion now. We're only at $3 million down. If we didn't do anything back then, it would be $9 to $12 million behind. So we're playing catch up, and we're $3 million down. But thank God they did something 5 years ago, because we'd be $12 million down. And then your rates are going to go up, and then you make all the difference up at one shot. So is that correct?
I think that's the simplest response to that question. I mean, when you don't raise rates for 20 years, all costs have gone up during that period of time. Salaries went up, chemicals went up, cost of equipment goes up.
But I think like now, I think we have less staff now than we did when the rates were passed 5 years ago.
You know,
so that's what I'm trying to do the math, and it's not adding up. I mean, maybe I'm a big dummy, but I can't make it work in my head how we're at this point again.
Okay.
As I mentioned, you know, utility enterprises, one of the major primary costs of it is maintaining the system, maintaining the infrastructure. And with you having a deficit, the enterprise, that means you're most likely not addressing your capital needs. One thing we're just trying to do on this adjustment for this next 5 years is just get out of the deficit and not even address. We do have some capital improvements planned in this particular financial planning, but it doesn't even address your deferred maintenance that have occurred over the years, because you don't have the revenue coming in to address it. It's like looking at your house and just doing the bare minimum, or just not even doing the improvements that you need to do, the roofing, and then later on you have a leak in your roof that then you have to address with the quick fix and repair. That's the kind of situation you're in. So first thing we're doing is, first, let's make sure we get rid of the deficit. You need to increase rates. A good example of that is right now, in September, you didn't move forward. So as I mentioned, that 5.127 million, you're not going to get that anymore. Right. It's going to be less. If you want to get something equivalent to that 5.27 million for the rest of this fiscal year, the rates would have to be higher than what we're proposing. So it's an issue of timing. If we want to get something equivalent, we would need an increase of maybe not 10%, 15, 20% to get that same amount.
So at the end of the 5 years, does this pay off the debt?
In the end of 5 years, you would then have the deficit eliminated, and you would have reserves in place of what you commonly need of operating and capital reserve.
Now, the reserve mark you said we need to get at, does that put us at that point?
Yes.
And then
within the 5 years, correct.
So then if we want to do capital improvement projects, we have to raise rates one more time after that, so we can afford the...
You are addressing capital improvements. That was one slide. So the ending fund balances that shows negative and then becomes positive is funding the capital improvements that are already planned in that system. However, I would expect you have more capital improvements as part of your wish list or needs when you talk about the contamination, the meter replacement program. So there's other things that you could address once you know that your deficit is eliminated.
Okay, and then my other concern, when the whole town's finally metered, if we get it before 2025, great. At that point, people are going to be charged based on their usage. Now, if people are still conscious and conservative with their water, we're going to see a decrease in revenues. What happens at that point?
That's a good question. So one thing we're doing right now is, before, the amount of water in your fixed charge for meter customers was 25,000 gallons.
Right, you lowered it to 19.
And now we're lowered to 19 because the usage shows that people are using less water. So we already built that in, because if we gave 25,000, that would be too much and you'd be losing revenue. Now we're down to 19. As you see your customers transition from non-meter to meter, most likely what will happen is those non-meter customers are going to have to conform to using less than 19 units of water to keep their water usage down. I would anticipate that most likely those non-meter customers are using more than that because they're not being charged for it. So they're going to most likely see higher bills when they convert than what they're used to, and then they're going to have to conserve. And then as all customers are converted, then that would be a good time to redo the cost of service, another update, to see where you're landing now, since we have the data of all customers using water. You have to report it to the state anyways.
Right.
So it'd be a good timing to redo your rate study again.
So that would just be a big unknown, basically, then.
Yeah, I would, but from my experience, I would expect that you most likely will have still more usage than what we're projecting now, because right now, we're projecting that non-meter customers, if they convert, are gonna use 19 units of water.
Right.
But most likely they're using more, but if they do use more, then that means you're just gonna get more revenue as opposed to less revenue.
Because I know just during the last drought, when the state mandated us to lower water usage and everything, certain communities that were strictly metered,
Mm-hmm.
they had to seek an increase because the revenue of the enterprise funds went way down.
Right.
And I just don't want to be, stuck in that position now, because
Correct.
everyone's metered and stops using, or the state comes back in and changes things. So it's kind of,
So let's look at it a different way. Let's say we don't do a rate study and everyone converts over. And since we have that 19 units of water in place as part of the fixed charge, every customer is paying for 19 units of water as a fixed charge every single month, regardless if they use it or not. So if they don't use 19 units, they use only 10 TGALs, they're still getting charged the full fixed charge.
right.
So again, it's going to keep you immune to any loss in additional usage because it's in the fixed charge. Also, there's been a hardening in usage where the new norm is now this lower amount of usage, and we're already taking that into account. So I think we set the city up for success in terms of being financially sufficient in future years. But I still recommend, once everyone is metered, to then redo the rate study to see where it's at. I would expect that most likely we're going to see there's more usage than what's being projected now.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing. When everyone is converted, then I would eliminate the water allotment in the fixed charge. There will be no water available as part of the fixed charge. We would get that out of the fixed charge, and then we would charge every customer for every unit of water.
That's what I was assuming when I was asking that question.
Yes.
But so, yeah, we're on the same page then.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
you're required to do so by the state once everyone's metered.
Okay.
Cindy? Okay, at this time, anybody else have any protests they'd like to bring forward? See none, we'll close this portion.
We would also be closing and not accepting protest at this point in time, so.
Okay, so we're looking for direction from the council? Oh. Does he need to read all those? Doug? Okay. We're getting a total count of protests right now.
Right, so a total of 13 protests were received prior to the public hearing. If the, go to the next one, okay. So we have a total of 13 protests. It is the finding of the city clerk pro tem that the city did not receive the protests from a majority of property owners pursuant to the requirements of Proposition 218.
So with that, the Prop 218 process will move forward, and everything would be subject to a vote in the affirmative. There would not be enough protests to cancel it out.
So at this time, looking for a motion from council to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Have a motion to approve by Vieira, a second by Kale. Call for the question.
So I want to just clarify, since it's a rate increase item. The motion, and you can just confirm, the motion is to adopt Resolution 3067-19 approving Raptel's Comprehensive Water and Wastewater Cost of Service Study dated August 8, 2018, and adopting new rates for water and wastewater services effective February 1st, 2019. Does that represent your motion? Does that represent the second?
Absolutely.
Call for the question?
Hale.
Yes.
Viera.
Yes.
And Breeze.
Before I give my vote here, I just want to say that this is something that's very hard to either vote yes or no on. I get it. I get the concern. But if we wait and try to win the lawsuit, that's like some of us waiting to win the lottery. You know, we still have bills to pay now. We got to get this accomplished. So with that, I say yes.
Raymond, no. Creighton.
I too want to make a comment that this isn't easy, but the hardest thing to do is to do nothing and put it off on somebody else down the road and hope for the best. To do the right thing is not always popular. I think there was some discussion about elderly and the concern for those people. You know, I'm going to personally go out and try to make contact with who Mr. Hernandez was talking about, that there are people in the community like that, and as the other person said, that we do need to step up. There's 30,000 of us, and myself and others, we can help the seniors that need help or those that need a little bit of help as community members. We don't always have to look to the government. We look to our neighbor, look to our friends, and do the right thing and make this a better town. So I vote yes also, and we won't let you down. We'll make sure we use the money correctly, and we'll be held accountable. Motion passes.
Motion passes. City Council matters. Discussion and possible action regarding the unscheduled vacancy for the position of city clerk as a result of the resignation of Don Heiler III.
Thank you, guys. So I'm going to have the city manager handle this one.
So I think the city attorney.
City attorney, actually, Doug's going to.
And I'm going to give my opinion.
So give us some background first about how we got here.
Okay, so Mayor and Council, at one of your last meetings, the council received the resignation of Don Heiler III from the position of city clerk. That created a vacancy in this position, which is elected. And because it's an elected position, the government code requires that that position be either appointed by this council or be filled through a special election. So a special election would cost in the range of around 60 to 70,000 or more, because it wouldn't even be coinciding with a regular election. And those are the only two choices that you have because it's an elected position. What you had with the clerk pro tempore is just a temporary appointment to make sure that we have a clerk. This is the more permanent one, so this is why there's some redundancy in what we're doing. There's actually legal reasons for it all, even though it seems silly. But we have to take action on this, because if not, then we'll be required to call a special election at a significant amount of cost. So with that, I'll let the city manager give her recommendation.
So previously, up to the last city clerk, Mr. Heiler, when he was elected to the position in 2012, I believe. Prior to that, we've had a staff person as our city clerk. We didn't realize the impact that would have by having a non-staff person as the city clerk. My recommendation would be that the council appoint a staff person to be the city clerk. They are the ones that are responsible for the day-to-day operations and the work that needs to get done. The resolutions that get in your packet, the staff reports, the agendas, they're responsible, the record keeper of the official documents. So they're responsible for the work that gets done. So our recommendation would be that you appoint a staff individual to that vacant city clerk position, because it's currently an elected position and they have to have guidelines as far as the requirements and elector. They have to be a qualified elector for the position. We do have in the city clerk's department a staff member that would meet those qualifications, and that would be my recommendation, is for the council to.
So just to be clear, an elector means you have to be a resident of the city of Atwater. You have to live within the city of Atwater
yes.
and be registered.
Yes.
So what you're saying is, with elected position, we've always had we always had a city clerk's department within the city of Atwater from the very beginning, since 1922. We just did a current elected person that was outside of the department. That person resigned, so now we have to fill that vacancy. In most municipalities, the city clerk's appointed by the city manager, or is the city manager or staff member. How many cities did you research locally that are, I think there were said city managers, the city clerk, and then there's deputies within there. In Los Banos, they have an appointed city clerk from the staff. So what we're doing is something pretty normal, but we're explaining what we're doing before we do what we do. The city was fortunate enough to find someone within the city clerk's department that actually lives here that we could appoint. So that makes that department stronger and more resilient. So we're looking for.
And I can comment
What?
too that
Oh, okay.
prior to this, we did have a ballot measure that was on the ballot, whether or not the position should be appointed versus elected. And we didn't really have much discussion on that, didn't realize the importance of that. By appointing a position or the person for this, the remainder of the term, that's all we're talking about is the remainder of the city clerk term. That will give the council an idea of whether or not they feel it should continue as an elected position versus an appointed, and maybe bring it back again for the next ballot.
So we'll open it up for public comment.
Mary McWaters. I just want to say that having sat with Don Heiler on the commission, I thought
Can you move the microphone down a little bit? There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Or you just wanted to see me? Okay, Mary McWaters. I just wanted to say that I sat on the commission with Don Heiler, and I attended several meetings here, and I thought he was doing an awesome job. It was put on the ballot to make it an appointed position, a staff member instead of an elected position, and it did not pass. I'm not saying you should go out to an election because it is expensive. However, I just wanted to say that I don't think Mr. Heiler was treated with the respect he should have been. I don't know if it's because he ran for a seat on the council or what, or why he felt the need to resign. But I just think that he should have been given a little more respect. He was doing an awesome job, and it just needed to be said up here. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to come forward? No, we're good.
Gabe Santos again. If we have somebody that's qualified and it's legal and ethical and they're within, let's move forward. We don't have $60,000 or $70,000.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Rich Miller, 334 Silva Drive here in Atwater. I'm a novice, so I'm one of the people that I guess the other folks were talking about out of the thousands in our community that haven't been involved, but I'm trying to now be involved. And what I'm just wanting to know is this a paid position? If it is, then the person who takes that position, how would they be compensated? Would they still get their pay and the pay for the clerk position, or would that be combined and then there'd be a savings because their position would no longer be filled? If you could answer that for me.
So currently, how our code is set up, there is a small, very small stipend that the city clerk receives. I believe it's around the $300 mark. That's not in excess that's going to make or break or give the city any significant savings for the additional time that it would require for her to add these duties to her current job that is full-time.
Anyone else from the public like to come forward at this time? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Or, thank you. A month.
It's a month.
300, the question was how much? $300 a month is the answer. Public comment is closed. City council comments?
Oh, yeah, the recommendation. Yeah, if you have a recommendation.
Go ahead, Brian, first.
Real quick. Yeah, no, so I'm all for it. I mean, we need to fill it. But in the issue of best practices, past practices, is this something that we should open up for an application process, or I don't know.
I don't think we have the time, quite frankly, to mess around with this right now, so, no.
And it is, as you saw, unless you'd like to continue to be our clerk pro tem.
As long as I can deputize somebody,
I think
deputy pro tem.
it is something that should be addressed, and because we have a qualified elector, that would be my recommendation. And Lucy is already in the city clerk, so Lucy Armstrong is who I would recommend to council. She is in our city clerk department. She can then have the resources available to her to deputize the other clerks within the department, and so that we have a multiple plethora to choose from.
Okay.
Any other council members want to comment?
I can't really see adding extra duties to our staff that are already, working hard as it is. Now we're giving them another job to do, and may or may not give them the $300. In good faith, I can't do that.
Well, I think Lori should answer that for you, because currently, I think the city clerk's department's doing all these jobs already. Anyway, the elected position's more of a ceremonial person, not a day-to-day nuts and bolts type person. So I don't think we're adding any additional work to anyone.
So if that was the case, then what was the point of having the position elected if it was a staff member all those years
Why
ago?
elected?
Yeah.
More of a ceremonial figurehead oversight from the public.
So if I could, this is a fixture back that goes long time, probably hundreds of years, and well, not hundreds of years, but 150 years in California, when everything was done by volunteers, your fire department, you had your treasurer, you had your city clerk, and all your electeds. The city clerk was the one who just basically kept the notes, and it was envisioned that they would perform all of those duties. But like everything in California, particularly in the last 10, 15 years, the clerk's role has actually, what the clerk is responsible for it's probably more expansive than anyone who isn't doing this on a full-time basis would be willing to take on. So in those cities that have elected city clerks, it's typically, the job functions are 95% done by staff, and then they are just kind of confirmed or ratified by the city clerk, which is one of the reasons we put it on the ballot. And frankly, every city that I've got, Sonora, Dixon, we got rid of it, Oakdale and Riverbank, Riverbank we got rid of it, and Oakdale we haven't yet, has effectively put it on the ballot to try to get it removed, because it cost us every 4 years about $45,000 to $50,000 to have that position on the ballot, and then the functions that are performed with them, not taking away from anybody who's put effort into it. Don was probably the most active city clerk I've ever. Most city clerks that are elected don't even attend the meetings. They're really responsible for just the job postings. So most of those cities have all gone to getting that just done by staff, and the reason is they're having to do the work already. And it saves not, the biggest savings comes when you put it on the election, about $45, but it also goes to the $300. Like, none of you even get paid anything because you all voluntarily gave it all away. But the city clerk was making about $300 a month. So that's the rationale, that's why it's there. So doing this would effectively make you more normal than you are now. You'd be very much in the minority at this point.
And just to clarify, that department is already doing the work. So the city clerk department, which we already have, and there is 3.5 people in that department, as well as Janelle in my department, are already doing the work. So it's not going to, it will increase her responsibilities, but the workload itself is still being done by that department. So
in summary, I think it actually makes it easier.
And I think Gina might be able to address this. When we had this position first filled, there was some confusion and chaos with the clerk's department for several months, wasn't there? Can you elaborate on that?
So Gina was our city clerk prior to Dawn for the last 12 years. So she's
there were like some mailing issues and other things. So sometimes it creates confusion more than it helps.
Yeah, there was just a little bit of a disconnect by not having the city clerk on staff. Not that Dawn didn't do a good job, it was difficult because the city clerk is a profession. So it is difficult for somebody to come off the street that doesn't have the experience to come in and step into that role. So staff already does all the functions that are required of the city clerk.
Did that help you with more information?
It did and it didn't. Now you guys have me going on. So where's the $300 going to go to now? Is it just going to sit?
It will continue to go to the city clerk because that's how the structure that we set up.
Since it's a...
So then they will be getting
It's set by
stipend
code.
at least then.
Yeah, they'll get the stipend. It's set by code.
Correct.
John, you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
Cindy? So, what the recommendation is that the city council appoint an eligible staff member as city clerk to fill the remainder of the term ending December 2020, or provide staff with direction on a process to fill the end schedule vacancy for the position of city clerk, as a result of the resignation of Don Heiler. So we're looking for direction from the council to take the city manager's recommendation and move forward with appointing city staff.
I make a motion that we accept the city manager's recommendation and move forward with appointing a staff member as Lucy Armstrong as the city clerk. Correct?
I'll second.
Motion by Vieira, seconded by Raymond. Call for the question.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
Kale.
Yes.
Raymond, yes.
Creighton, yes. Motion passes. So we're going to do the oath of office now. Okay.
I did ask before voting.
This thing on? Okay, good. Okay, Lucy, repeat after me. I can do this. What's that? No, I'm going to have you. Make sure I do this right. There's my right hand. Okay. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Against all enemies. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California. Bear true faith to the Constitution of the United States and the State of California. That I will take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Upon. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay, we're going to adjourn here and go back into closed session, re-adjourn, go.
City council comments.
Okay, you guys want to do that now? Okay.
Become a good clerk.
That's right. So, city council comments. John?
You know, every year in January, we're here the inspirational quotes of Martin Luther King. And I have it written down because I want to make sure I say this correctly. He stated that he had a dream that his 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. These are words I know I strive to live by every day. And I think that we should really think about these words and try to remember that in January and February, they're not important. They're not as important as they are every year. And I really think that we should strive to do that. And trust me, when we speakers that come up and talk and they say things that sometimes aren't great, you have to sit there and go, okay, I trust you. We're gonna do what we feel is the right thing to do. And like I said earlier, I really spent a lot of time studying the water reports and everything we did, so make sure that we try to get this right, so that we can live in a community where it's safe to drink our water. And so that we try to do it without hurting anybody physically or their pocketbook. That's all I have.
Dan?
First off, I just want to say, Lucy, I do have a lot of confidence in you. I didn't make my statement to challenge, what you know and what you don't know. I really am just trying to look out for the staff here. As for some of the other questions that I asked earlier, that's what I was elected for, is to ask questions. I may not always ask the popular question or the correct question, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to try to make sure to do the right things for this community. My family's a part of this community. When it comes to the water rates, yes, I feel bad for all the elderly who can't afford it, for those who are around my age who can't afford it. But we also have to look towards our children and the grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren. We want to make sure that these wells and the water lines and everything's taken care of now, because if not, we're not going to have anything for them. That's it.
Cindy?
I'll echo off of John with the good quotes of Martin Luther King. I think we saw one a lot this week, and it says something about, I'll choose love because hate has too much of a burden. What is that exact quote, John? Is that what it is? I choose love because hate has too much of a burden. So I thought that's where you might be going on that. And anyway, we do all live in a community, a small community, where we see each other in the grocery store and know each other. We heard a lot of things tonight about helping out the senior citizens and Castle Air Force Base. My father was in the Air Force. He's retired military, still lives here, retired. My mom lives here, she's retired. They live on fixed incomes too, but then I have 10 grandchildren, and they need pipes and water, and we have to not only take care of our elderlies, but I have to think about the young as well. If we don't change the oil in our car, it will cease to run, and then the engine blows, and that's a lot more expensive than slowly taking care of what we have. So I think we kind of have to pick up where maybe the ball was dropped. No fault of anyone, we can't all see in the future. So it is a heavy burden, but I do feel like we are doing the right thing to maintain what we own and what we have, the integrity of our water system, to move forward with, if the lawsuit does not come through, which I think we're going to be really good there, but that's just my personal opinion, to be able to have the finances and the security to move forward to clean our water. Maybe it won't be clean for my mom, but it will be clean for my grandkids. So we have to leave the earth a little bit better than how it was when we came here. That's it.
Brian?
City clerk's going.
Deputy City Clerk?
Doing the thing here. New job. But I still don't get paid for it.
You're fired after today.
Thankfully. I wasn't here at the last meeting. I was sick, and I did not get to wish Don well in his endeavors. He's done a great job and has actually been helpful to the city. His role in the Planning Commission or the CDRC, and his time as clerk. So I do wish him the best. Also, I didn't support the water rate increase just because there's some more issues I have that I'll discuss further with the city manager. But the guys from Raftellus really do a great job. They worked hard, getting everything done, and I've always beat up on them. I've never given them kudos, but they really do. They really, do a great job what they do. I do want to follow up. A couple meetings ago, I mentioned working on a fire fleet replacement program. I want to see if we've got anywhere with that by the next meeting. That's really all I have.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. I'll make it real quick. I'd like to make sure we get on the next agenda or shortly after that. We need to go back to the Planning Commission. So we need to get that agendized.
So it's an ordinance, so we have the process started.
It won't be next week.
Okay, but I want to get the process started, so what do we need to do?
Our staff level's already got direction,
Okay.
so we're moving.
So we're moving forward with that. And then also, everybody's familiar with the JLAC, the audit process we've been going through for the last year at the state. Staff's provided thousands and thousands of documents and done hundreds of hours of work, and Brian Ramian and I met last year at the state. Paul, I can't remember his last name, the head guy for the, what's the department called? Yeah, for the auditor, the state auditor's department. And we met because there were rumors if the state came in, they were going to take us over, then we'd be like a county or something. But Brian and I went up there and we met, and we probably spent an hour, hour and a half in his office. 2 hours. And an audit of the city is not a bad thing. There's a lot of people fearful, oh God, the state's going to come in and audit you. We spent a year working hard trying to get through it. I think to speed the process up, I want to see the city be audited by the state to get us through this. Watching staff interact with the state and what the state's asking for is pure transparency for the people. So it may come with a title high risk, under state audit or whatever else, but let's get that done and move forward and put that behind us. And if we are labeled that, and that does happen, which I think the city needs done, people want to make sure the water money is being spent on the water, the sewer money is being spent for the sewer, and all the other things will come out of that. And find the discrepancies that we're doing that we haven't caught yet, but speed the process up. Paul told me that there's communities in California that beg to be audited by the state of California. So we're going to get for free the state auditor to come in and audit us. That'd be a good thing for the citizens of Atwater and for the state also, to know that we got our ship righted and we're on the right course for years to come. So I want to explore working with JLAC and trying to get on the agenda that we voluntarily want to move forward and do something on that. Brian, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, just to piggyback off that, I do agree, but this is something too we can also work with Assemblyman Gray's office and have it be under his purview rather than there's a high risk audit. Same thing, but it'll be working with our local assemblyman.
I think that's a good point, because initially we worked with Senator Canella and Assemblymember Gray while we've been going through this process, and both of their agencies have been fabulous. The state auditor's office has been fabulous. They've sent people down here. We've actually built a really good relationship, and it's time that we move forward together and finish this process. So I'd like to just try to get direction to the city manager to start that line of communication that we really want to do something as far as being audited and moving forward to that process. The other thing I want staff to work on and not just talk about is the water capital replacement. So we have some items that are coming up this year in the new fiscal budget to do the water line replacements. I want to see that a little bit more accessible on our website to show the people what we're doing and how we're moving forward. And then also keep them abreast to our litigation, how that goes. And that's all I have. So thank you very much. We're going to adjourn here and go back to closed session.